Ohayo gozaimasu. Good morning, everyone. How are ya? Today we'll be continuing our reading of Kokoro by Natsume Soseki. Just starting to get into the interesting parts. These first few sections are just kind of an introduction, and we'll kind of get into the real story once we meet Sensei and our main character gets to know him a little bit and uncover some of his secrets. But just something I've been thinking of doing. So for those of you who don't know, I teach Japanese. So something I've been thinking of doing with my students is sharing a Japanese kotowaza, or like a Japanese proverb, every week, which we can then kind of discuss and get a little bit of a taste of Japanese culture. So actually, looks like I forgot to turn on a light here. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to see. So, give me 1 second. I will go ahead and share this week's proverb in Japanese. So this week's proverb is いかに冠を正さず。いかに冠を正さず。Let me go ahead and add a new window capture. Right here. Okay. And we'll share it. いませんね. Okay. There we go. Okay, so it is いかにちかいか冠を正さず。Make that a bit bigger so we can actually see it. So, 理科に冠を正さず. So a lot of times these proverbs will have words that aren't really used or readings that aren't really used in the kanji. So let's go over each of these real quick to get the meaning here. So this rika. Actually, let's type this in hiragana so we can take a look at it. Tadasazu. So this rika here, this first character is the character used for sumomo or momo, so peach. So peach, and then a very beginner kanji, which some of you who've started learning kanji will probably know. This is beneath, below, underneath, down. So here, underneath the peach tree. Ni, telling us where this is happening. Kammuri. So kammuri is a crown, like that you'd wear on your head, the king. So kammuri o is always telling us what we are doing the action to, and we have tadasazu. Comes from the verb tadasu, to correct something. Fix, correct. And then this is kind of an archaic nai form here. Not really archaic, I guess, because it's still used in modern Japanese, but a lot less. So this is not correct your crown under the peach tree. So this one kind of requires some explanation. So when you're under a peach tree, don't fix your crown, because the action of moving your hand upward might be considered, or it might be interpreted as you trying to steal a peach from the peach tree. So, basically what it boils down to is don't do anything that might cause suspicion for you. Okay. Kind of an interesting one. There's also another kind of companion proverb that goes along with this that's like, don't fix your shoes in the melon field. It's the same kind of thing that can be taken as, oh, he's trying to steal melons. So basically, don't do any actions that might seem suspicious to other people. Always be aware of what people might think of your actions, even if they're not necessarily bad actions. Be careful so that people don't think that you're doing anything bad. So, 理科に冠を正さず. Don't correct or fix your crown while under the peach tree. Okay. Okay. So let's get right back into Kokoro. So here we go. We are now in section 4. So we have our main character who's come to Kamakura, who is vacationing there, and he randomly sees this stranger that he's just kind of piques his interest. He's like, what is this guy doing here? For some reason, he says he's kind of familiar, and he's kind of been watching him for a while. And the first time he sees him, he's with this gaikokujin, this foreign person. But now we will see what happens. So there's one day he comes with this foreign person, and then he goes home. Now this is a later day that our character sees Sensei, this person, again. So let's get right into it. And remember, so watakushi, this character is kind of a humble, polite person. So instead of watashi, uses watakushi. Every time you see the watashi character, we're going to read it watashi, not watashi, but watakushi. So, watakushi wa... Actually, wait. Getting ahead of myself. We're going to listen to the audio for this one so that you guys can hear a native speaker read this out. Then we'll break it down. So, let me know if you can't hear anything. But here we go.
私は単に好奇心のため並んで浜辺を降りてゆく二人の後ろ姿を見守っていた。すると彼らはまっすぐに波の中に足を踏み込んだ。そして遠浅の磯近くにワイワイ騒いでいる多人数の間を通り抜けて比較的広々したところへ来ると二人とも泳ぎ出した。彼らの頭が小さく見えるまで沖の方へ向いていった。それから引き返してまた一直線に浜辺まで戻ってきた。掛け茶屋へ帰ると井戸の水も浴びずにすぐ体を拭いて着物を着てさっさとどこへか行ってしまった。彼らの出て行った後、私はやはり元の将棋に腰を下ろしてタバコをふかしていた。その時私はポカンとしながら先生のことを考えた。どうもどこかで見たことのある顔のように思われてならなかった。しかしどうしてもいつどこで会った人か思い出せずにしまった。その時の私は屈託がないというよりむしろ不良に苦しんでいた。それであくる日もまた先生に会った時刻を見計らってわざわざ掛け茶屋まで出かけてみた。すると西洋人は来ないで先生一人麦わら帽をかぶってやってきた。先生は眼鏡を取って台の上に置いてすぐ手ぬぐいで頭を包んでスタスタ浜を降りていった。先生が昨日のように騒がしい浴客の中を通り抜けて一人で泳ぎ出したとき、私は急にその後が追いかけたくなった。私は浅い水を 頭の上まで跳ねかして相当の深さのところまで来て、そこから先生を目印に抜き手を切った。すると先生は昨日と違って一種の弧線を描いて、妙な方向から岸の方へ帰り始めた。それで私の目的はついに達せられなかった。私が丘へ上がって雫の垂れる手を振りながら掛け茶屋に入ると、先生はもうちゃんと着物を着て入れ違いに外へ出て行った。
はい。ということで、we have our main character stalking Sensei a little bit. Right? So, alright, let's start breaking this down. So we have 私は単に好奇心のために並んで浜辺を降りていく二人の後ろ姿を見守っていた。So, first of all, we're kind of translating this in English very often. We go to the end or where there's a te form to see which verb is what we're doing. Okay, so here, 私は見守っていた. So what were we watching or looking after? 見守る。後ろ姿. So someone walking away from you. 後ろ姿, what they look like from behind. I was watching these two people, who were descending, going down, 降りていく, going down the beach side by side, 浜辺、並んで浜辺を降りていく二人の後ろ姿を見守っていた。And then we have のために. For what purpose was this action being performed? 単に好奇心. Out of simple curiosity. 好奇心, curiosity. 単に simply. Out of simple curiosity, I was watching these two going down to the beach side by side. すると、then, 彼らはまっすぐに波の中に足を踏み込んだ。So, 彼らは these people まっすぐに directly, straight. 波の中に足を踏み込んだ。So, 波 being the waves, into the waves, 足を踏み込む。stepped into the waves. そうして、遠浅の磯近くにワイワイ騒いでいる多人数の間を通り抜けて。Okay, so there's a te form. A lot of times that means we have an action and it's followed by another action, so we can break it down here. So, they did this, and then what did they do? 通り抜ける, to pass through or in between. 多人数, a lot of people, several people, multitude maybe even. And what are these people doing? ワイワイ騒いでいる. So YY is like an onomatopoeia word for excitement. A lot of commotion, excitement. So YY 騒ぐ. 騒ぐ is to make a lot of noise. YY 騒いでいる多人数の間を通り抜けて. And where this took place? 磯近く. 遠浅の磯近く. So near the shoreline, wide and shallow. So we watched these people, we watched Sensei and this foreigner go through this group of people that were making such a commotion, basically at the shoreline. And then, 比較的, relatively 広々したところへ来ると, when you have a verb in the dictionary form with a to, a lot of times it's like, upon this happening, once this happened. So once they came, 来る, to the 広々したところ, a place that was more wide open, probably less people, 二人とも泳ぎ出した. So if you want to say like both of them, you can say 二人, the two people, とも. This とも means both of, like, you can say 三人とも, all three. 二人とも would be like both. So 二人とも泳ぎ出した. 泳ぐ to swim. And we have 出す. So this is an interesting grammar point here. We have dasu after the mas stem of a verb. This means you're beginning to do something. It's like right when something starts to happen. So they began to swim. Oyogi dasu. Another way that this dasu is used very commonly, you'll see ame ga furidashita. It all of a sudden began to rain. Or arukidashita. The person randomly started walking. Okay, so we have these people, they passed through this multitude, they got into an open space, and then they started swimming. 彼らの頭が小さく見えるまで. So this made is telling us an extent. So until their heads, 彼らの頭が小さく見える, appeared smallly. They looked small. So until their heads became small, 沖の方へ向いていた. So 向く is to face somewhere. So 向いて, they faced somewhere, and then they went there. 彼らの頭が小さくなるまで沖の方へ向いていった. They headed toward the, what do we have, Oki here? Just the open sea? Yeah. Until their heads became very small. それから then 引き返して they kind of turned around. 引き返す. また一直線に浜辺まで戻ってきた. So they turned around and then 一直線 in a straight line, a beeline. 浜辺まで戻ってきた. 戻る is to return, so 戻ってくる. Come back to. So they immediately turned straight back and came back to the beach. 掛け茶屋へ帰ると井戸の水も浴びずにすぐ体を拭いて着物を着てさっさとどこへか行ってしまった. So, okay. Where we have lots of te forms. Remember, the te form is kind of like our and. So you do this, then this, then this. So upon coming back, returning to the kakejaya, the beachside tea hut. Okay, here we go. This is zu that we ran into in the proverb. Ido no mizu mo abizu ni. So without even doing what? Bathing in or rinsing in the water from the well. So without even washing themselves off from the well water with using the well water. Sugu karada o fuite. They wiped their bodies. Fuku, wipe. Kimono o kite. So we have te form. They wiped their bodies. They wore their kimono, or their clothes. Right? Get dressed. Sasato doko e ka itte shimatta. Sasato is like right away. Boom. And they went right away somewhere else. Doko e ka, or doko ka e itte shimatta. Completely went somewhere else. 彼らの出て行った後、私はやはり元の将棋に腰を下ろしてタバコをふかしていた。So, 彼らの出ていた後. So here we have a grammar here, 後. So 後 means after. So if you have a verb in the past tense before 後, it says after this action has been done. So after they left, departed, 私はやはり. As expected, やはり。私はやはり元の将棋に腰を下ろして。So I sat down, literally lower your hips or your lower back onto something. This means to sit down. 腰を下ろして。On the stool from before. 元の将棋に腰を下ろしてタバコをふかしていた. I was smoking, having a cigarette. Fukasu, I don't hear it very often. You normally just use su here. This is kind of like you make the tabako blow rather than inhaling it, which is normally what you say when I smoke. Tabako su. You can also say ふかしていた. その時私はポカンとしながら 先生のことを考えた. So this nagara is telling us that two actions are happening at the same time. So, yeah, その時、私はポカンとしながら先生のことを考えた. So while ポカンとする, you're kind of just lost in your mind. Blankly. That time, while I was just kind of stuck in thought to myself, right? ポカンとしながら先生のことを考えた. I thought of Sensei. You had to think about Sensei, this person. Remember, at this point in the story, he doesn't call him Sensei, but he's a narrator writing this. So, and he always calls him Sensei. He started thinking of this person. どうもどこかで見たことのある顔のように思われてならなかった. So, no matter what, this どうも is kind of like no matter what, I think, no matter how I think about it, どこかで somewhere 見たことのある顔のように思われてならなかった. So, 見たことのある顔. So this 顔 is being described by 見たことのある. So, 見たことがある. Maybe you've seen this grammar before. たことがある can be something that you have done. So, 見たことがある. Or 見たことのある. Like a face that I've seen before. Could have sworn I've seen his face before. And this てならない means like I think this way and I just can't help it. And you have a てならない or てならなかった. It's like you can't help but this verb with the て form. 思われてならなかった. しかし、どうしてもいつどこで会った人か思い出せずにしまった。しかし、however, どうしても no matter what, いつどこで where and when, or when and where, right? いつどこで会った人か思い出せずにごめんなさいにしまった。I could not think or could not remember, recall where or when I met this person. その時の私は屈託がないというより、むしろ、okay, this is one I actually don't know. So let's take a look at it. 不良に苦しんでいた. So nowadays you'd probably use the word like 退屈, boredom. And 苦しむ is to suffer. I suffered from this boredom. And というより. So when you have というより, this is kind of like rather than this thing. So rather than me being carefree, I was really just suffering from boredom. So, okay, so next in this next sentence, we have something interesting as well. So, それで、翌日. So normally you'd read this as 翌日. However, a lot of times there are kanji that have a meaning and a normal way that you would read them. And the author, in order to bring a certain feeling out, will specify that this is read something else. Or it could be that it used to be read a certain way. Now it's more common to read it another way. So nowadays we would see this and read yokujitsu. However, I believe Soseki specifically wanted this to be akuruhi, which is the next day. So this yoku kanji here means the next, and we have hi day. So, akuruhi or yokujitsu. もうまた先生に会った時刻を見計らって。So 見計らう is kind of like estimate, almost like to calculate something in your mind. Right? So I made an estimate on the time, 時刻, that I met Sensei. 先生に会った時刻. Okay, when did I see him last? It was at this time. So I calculated out this time that I met Sensei. わざわざ掛茶屋まで出かけてみた. So, purposefully, intentionally, わざわざ. Kakejaya, or went to the trouble to. It's also went to the trouble. This waza waza is very useful in modern day Japanese as well. If you want to say, oh, thank you for going out of your way to do this for me, you'd say, waza waza kite kurete arigato. Waza waza. It's like, you go out of your way for something. So, waza waza tabete. Go out of your way to eat something. Waza waza kite. Go out of your way to do it. It must have been a lot of trouble, but waza waza kite kurete arigato. But here it can also kind of be a little bit intentionally, but that's more like wazato. So, kakejaya made dekakete mita. So I headed to that beachside tea hut. Suruto, then, seiyojin wa konai de. So this de is the te form and the nai form. So didn't, without showing up, did not come. The seiyojin, the Westerner, did not come. Sensei hitori. So sensei by himself. Mugiwara bo. So those of you who love One Piece, you probably know what a Mugiwara boshi is. Mugiwara bo. Straw hat. Mugiwara bo kabutte yatte kita. Came, yatte kuru, is to like show up, wearing a straw hat by himself. Okay. So sensei wa megane o totte. So sensei took off his megane. Dai no ue ni oite. Megane being glasses, sorry. Dai no ue ni. So put it on some sort of platform or table or stand. Yep. Dai no ue ni oite. Oku, to place something on stand or table. Sugu tenugui de atama o tsusunde. Tenugui is a hand towel or washcloth. Atama o tsutsunde, to wrap it around your head, or to wrap your head with this thing, right? Stasta, quickly, briskly. Stasta. I think this is another onomatopoeia word, like the sound of someone going fast, but I could be wrong. Stasta hama o oriteita. Headed down to the beach. Right. Sensei ga kino. Alright, let's see. Is this a weird one? No. Okay, this one's just kino. Sensei ga kino no you ni sawagashii yokukaku? Yokukaku? Yeah, yokukaku. Yokukaku no naka o tori nukete. So he once again passed among these bathers who are sawagashi, loud. Can also be annoying. You watch anime, people will say, Sawagashi! Oh, you annoying. You're so loud. Also kind of like used as like a shut up. Sawagashi! Hitori de oyogi dashita toki. Once again, we have this dasu, oyogi dasu, to begin swimming. And then toki, so when he began swimming all by himself. Watakushi wa kyū ni sono ato ga oikaketaku natta. So, or is this ushiro or ato? Could be either here. Might be ato or ushiro. I think it's ato. So, kyū ni, suddenly, I had this feeling that I wanted to pursue. Oikaketai. Oikaketaku naru. So, if you break this down into grammars, it gets a little confusing, but this is a very common thing in Japanese. So in Japanese, a lot of times what's important about the action is the transition from one thing into another. So we'll use naru for something to become a certain way a lot in Japanese. So we have oikakeru, to chase someone, to follow someone, to pursue someone. Oikakeru, put in the tai form, which is our want to. Oikaketai, And then we take that Thai form and it became so that I wanted to follow him. So the Thai form going to the want became so that I wanted to be takunaru. And then this past tense takunatta. Oikake natta. I suddenly wanted to follow him. Ato o oikakeru. To follow behind the person. 私は浅い水を頭の上までひねかして跳ねかして跳ねかして So I splashed in the water until the top of my head. He's in a very deep point now. Oh, no, wait, no. I was wrong. I read this incorrectly. So, asai mizu. So, in the shallow water, took some of the water and splashed it onto his head. Okay. 相当の深さのところまで来て I came up to, as Made is telling us, an extent. Where did he come up to? A place that was a certain or an appropriate depth. 相当の深さ. Certain depth. Right? Appropriate depth. そこから先生を Now this is another one. If you read this by yourself in a normal book nowadays, you would read this as 目標, like a goal or a target. There we have 目印. Alright, let's double check this. Because I would always read this as 目標, but apparently it can be read as 目印. Let's go ahead and turn this on and go to our friend Jisho. Jisho.org. So let's type in 目標. Yep. Okay. So nowadays, this is normally the word and the kanji combination that you would use for a mejirushi. It's like a sign or a mark of something. Right? Now here, there is a little bit of overlap, but when you see these kanji nowadays, you would read this as a mokkyo, a target or a goal. So you can set a mokkyo for like your New Year's resolution. Mokkyo. なんか目標がありますか? Or this week's goal. 今週の目標は何ですか? So, but here we have it read as mejirushi. So it's still a goal, but it's like something that you're following, right? So sensei o mokyou ni, so targeting sensei, right? Mark sign or a guide. Nukide o kitta. So nukide o kiru, swimming with an overarm stroke. So nukide o kiru. So he started swimming. Overarm stroke toward sensei, right? すると then 先生は昨日と違って so と違って is like different than what you would expect, different than yesterday. 一種の弧線を描いて一種 the type of 弧線 type of arc. So rather than coming straight back like he did yesterday, 一種の弧線を描いて he drew a big, like, round arc. So, egaku literally means to draw, but when you're doing an action in a certain way, in a certain shape, you can also use egaku in that way. So, 妙な方向から岸の方へ帰り始めた. So he began to come back, started heading back toward the shore in a weird direction, or from an unexpected or weird direction. So rather than going straight out, straight back like he did with his foreigner friend, headed out, kind of whoop, drew a big, kind of like an arc, and came back in a weird way. それで私の目的はついに達せられなかった. ついに is kind of like in the end, or when it comes down to it, 達せられない. Was unable to achieve. 達する, 達せられる. I believe it's 達する, right? Tassuru. Yep. To achieve something. Tasseru. Tasserarenai. So this is the potential form of that. Was unable to reach my goal or my objective because he went out and then back. I think he was going to maybe talk to Sensei if he came straight back, but he didn't. So, 私が陸へ上がって this is another one. So normally you'd see this maybe riku, but this is oka. So let's take a look at this. Should be riku, right? Am I crazy? Nope. So riku is like the land. We also have oka. Yep, other forms, oka. So, oka, in a homophone, we also have this oka, which is like a hill. Oh, I don't think I was showing you that, was I? Nope. Okay, so yeah, oka, like a hill. Okay. So he was unable to meet Sensei because he drew this big arc. So 私が丘へ上がって so I came back up onto the shore or the land. 雫の垂れる手 so 雫 is a drops. 雫を垂れる so 雫を垂れる is like the drops dripping. So 雫の垂れる dripping hands 手を振りながら so we have this ながら doing two actions at once. While I was shaking my hands, furu, to shake, that were dripping wet. 掛け茶屋に入ると I entered the tea house, and 先生はもう already, this mo is already, 先生はもうちゃんと着物を着て Sensei had already 着物を着て Chanto is do things that you're supposed to do or be in a good state. So if someone's doing something improperly, you can say, Chanto shite kudasai. Do it the right way. Be proper about it. So chanto kimono o kite. He had already dressed up as he should. Irechigai ni soto e dete itta. Irechigai means passing by. Right? There's also surechigao, pass someone by, like in a more literary sense. Soto e dete itta, and had headed outside. Dete iku, head out to the outside. So, all right. Unfortunately, today I'm gonna have to call it here, because I am out of time and have a pretty busy schedule today. But let's go ahead and we will continue this next week. So 今日来てくれてありがとうございます。Here we go. わざわざ来てくれてありがとうございます。Thank you for taking the time to be here. I will plan on seeing you next week. ありがとうございました。じゃあまたね。